you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. As you can see, I'm kind of doing this episode in hiding. I got two little kids running around, so I'm hiding in the adult bedroom behind the bed. And we're going to have Russ, who's also going to be on the show with us, in his car because he's on break from work. So we're just trying to get this information out. And today we want to talk about the dangers of carrying certain keys in those housing units. I think that was a big concern that was discussed when they were talking about the incident in Georgia, the riot that took place at Ware State Prison. And I think that's something that's definitely worthy of kind of diving into a little bit more. And there's something else I want to talk about too when dealing with understaffing, when policies no longer reflect practices. So we have a few things we're going to discuss, but again, we're going to keep it brief. Russ, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, Anthony. How's everything out there on the East Coast? I hear you guys are getting a little bit of weather action out there.
Yeah, we got a storm. It's very windy. It was raining pretty bad, some damage, but we're just going to stay in, wait it out, and then after that, we're going to try to see if we can go to some stores. We've been trapped in the house. You got COVID and you got storms. Can't win.
Yeah. It's a horrible series of events, it sounds like.
Hey, Russ, how's Keepers of Chaos going on Facebook?
Well, Keepers of Chaos, we just broke our 4,000 mark, so I'm really jazzed about that. Ready to, hopefully, now that some of this COVID stuff is on the wane, and hoping to be in a better position to really start picking up and driving towards that 10,000 mark. Yeah,
we're doing well ourselves. We should be pushing close to 14,000 on YouTube, which is good. Very impressed. We had about 178 new subscribers in the course of a week, which was very good for YouTube. Very good for the type of traffic that we get here. Again, very secure niche. Now, guys, we go to our sponsors, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about some of the concerns that you face when working in an understaffed facility. Now, guys, if you happen to show Tier Talk to you, brave men and women that work in corrections, so please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Again, we're going to go to our sponsors. When we come back, let's discuss practice versus policy, technically. All right, stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Guys, inmate manipulation is a course that is highly needed. It's the process that's so slow moving and subtle that you don't realize it's happening. When inmates choose to manipulate, they manipulate our need to react. Situational awareness and insight is going to save your career. It's going to save you from doing foolish things. Listen to your gut. So the more insight we have, the more we can recognize what isn't so overt, and we can correct our behavior before we fall into a trap that we can't get out of. If you allow an inmate to pull you out of your prescribed role, you are opening up a door for a host of problems. Inmate manipulation, the psychology behind inmate manipulation. Available now. Link in description. Hey, Russ, you got a chance to listen to the two officers as they were discussing the concerns that happened at Ware State Prison right before the riot. And a couple of things stood out for me. One was about the keys that they're carrying on their person when they're walking into these dorms or these housing units. And the other is related to policies that when you have understaffed facilities, a lot of people are going to be making these desperate changes, but you're not going to see those changes reflecting policy and how basically those policies, those SOPs can't be found. Because again, you can't reflect policy if you don't have enough resources to implement policy. But I thought first we could talk about the keys. So Russ, we've discussed this before, Russ. I mean, I have, outside of non-security keys, we know there are going to be non-security keys that go into like closets and stuff like that. We understand that. But we're talking about keys or control areas that are within the central area of the housing unit that has pretty much immediate access to any inmate that wants to take out that officer and grab a hold of either those keys or that local control point. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
You know, first of all, when you start having to, go to these lower staffing patterns, one of the things you have to start doing is you start making some of these positions cover more areas. And when they start covering more areas, then they start carrying other people's keys or more keys on their particular set. And you start not reflecting these things in your policies and your procedures. And pretty soon, everything that you've written is for a prison that's fully staffed rather than one that's, just trying to scrape by. And it sounds like to me that they had a real concern with that, because you start to get to a point where one officer has so many keys that all an inmate has to do is take him out. And the next thing you know, you end up with a hostage situation or an escape or dead officers in an area that nobody knows about because no one can get in there. I think that, it's just a thing where what they're doing isn't truly reflective of the situation that they're actually in.
And remember, when people act impulsively, they're looking for the biggest reward with pretty much the smallest amount of risk. And the thing is if I have one officer walking around with keys that has access to the whole unit, or an officer that has access to a control area, which again, the officer will have keys to get into that control area, it's going to be a motivation for the inmate. An inmate that's going to want to do something foolish, they're going to see that, hey, that's only one officer. That's limited risk. I can grab those keys. I can open up these cell doors. That's a great reward. So we're not doing nothing to lessen that motivation for an inmate to want to become impulsive, take out that officer, and then we wind up losing control of the unit. And like Russ said, when we're understaffed, sad thing is we are going to have bigger areas of control. And now these are in desperate times. So now what they're probably doing is officers that should be secured in posts, those local control point posts, they're probably now having to work those floors. So now the problem here is that when they're working those floors, they have the keys to get back into those local control point areas. So you're not going to probably see that in policy either. The two officers mentioned it in the last video we did, and Russ just touched on it now, where, when you have understaffed facilities and you're operating out of desperation, you're going to see that there's a bit of a scramble. And what happens is management may be okay with these rules being broken, not realize that these rules are there for a reason. They're built on the lifeblood of the facility, the evolution, for safety and security, what works and what doesn't work. These aren't just simple things that you can push aside. Now, when you have one officer walking the floor with those keys or having access to that control point, you're not going to see that in policy, especially if policy says, well, you got to have two. You have to have an eye in the sky that controls everything, and the officer on the floor shouldn't have keys that access the whole unit. But again, policy is not going to reflect that. All they're going to do is just say, work this post. Well, this isn't in policy. Take a look what's needed, and all of a sudden those policies disappear, Russ.
Yeah, and that really begs the question. They try and put people in this position where they're running a full and open program and everything's functioning like it normally functions, but without the manpower being there. The question that I want to ask is how come they're not doing some kind of rolling lockdown, or, at least keeping, a certain amount of the prisoners inside rather than trying to just, think, what, we can skirt by this. We'll be okay. We can operate at this level. And yeah, you can operate at that level right into the point where you end up with a critical incident that, causes you to have a hostage situation, get people killed, or end up with serious life-threatening injuries like what happened there.
Yeah, you actually mentioned a very good point about lockdown. When you don't have enough shift personnel, manpower, you're going to have to lock the facility down because, again, everything's at risk now. You got 1,500 inmates. You got, single digit worth of staff. I'm sorry, guys. It's an emergent situation. Let's lock it down. We cannot do anything at this point because we don't have enough staffing in case something goes wrong. And the funny thing is, the only way probably staff will be heard is if the facility remained on lockdown. You could justify it. It's locked down because I don't have enough staffing. And then when you start getting the pressure from the public saying, why aren't you letting them out? Instead of you folding, then you go to the next level up and say, we need more incentive to invite more people. You know, we need the right people to be in this profession. So that's a great way to really, you know, get what's needed for the people that work this crazy job. You know, if you want to really do what's best for them right now, you should lock it down. And when whoa, that's a train? That's all right.
It's the 12 o'clock train here. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Hold on. We can wait for the train to pass. Wait, hold on. That was a small train. That was a very quick train.
It does this every day, just afternoon.
Oh, well, what I was trying to get basically is that this is a great way to finally fight for change that's needed for the brave men and women that work this job. So, like, if you lock down that facility right now, which it should be because you don't have enough staffing, when the public starts to push to say, why aren't they being let out? Instead of the people saying, oh, let's let these inmates out. No, hold off. Hold your guns and say, wait a second, we still need staffing. So here's what we need to do. We need better pay, more incentive. This is a great way to get people that, you know, are qualified to do the job. But instead, what's going to happen here, and you know it's true, Russ, is they're going to cave with the public. And instead of doing that one more battle of resistance to fight for something more for these brave men and women, they're just going to say, got to let them out because that's their right.
Exactly. And, you know, we want to keep inmates safe as well. But, you know, you start putting inmates out there and you give them that risk reward scenario where their particular gang stands a chance to, you know, come up a little bit and there's not enough staff around. That presents something that's dangerous to them and presents a potential danger to us. But, you know, people, they're just not willing to see the realities that we work with, you know. And so, you know, if it takes doing some partial lockdowns or full lockdowns or you know, changing the inmate's day where, you know, they only have a 12-hour day and we can control that. I mean, there's solutions out there, I think, if people are just willing to try and engage them.
Right. And as I said, you definitely need the people in the higher positions to really understand what the front line's going through. And then maybe also bring that front line up, some real good frontline staff members like the two we just heard the other day to really state those concerns, because I think the public will see that the concerns that frontline staff has deals with how they need to do the job, how they need to be effective, how they need to create a safe and secured environment. So if you're not listening to frontline, then you're ignoring the main reason why they're asking for these changes, which is to make sure that the inmates are protected so they could be more effective in doing their job, because that's what it pretty much boils down to. But for some reason, no one listens to them, and it gets to this point here where something like this happens. Now you have a chance to say the truth, but you minimize it. And having said that, again, it doesn't put to light the dangers that these brave men and women face. So now when you get all these changes that are trying to be implemented, it's like, yeah, we could do that. We could do that. No, hold on. We can't do any of the changes that you want unless we create a strong foundation. And that strong foundation only exists if you enable the brave men and women on that front line to be effective at what needs to be done, which number one is safety and security. Correct, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. If you can't do it safely, if you can't do it securely, why are you doing it at all? But, you know, we just, like I say, we keep getting pushed into these positions where people just want to accept more and more risk, and they don't want to do anything to counter that, like, you know, increase the number of staff, increase the type and betterment of whatever type of safety equipment you have, you know, put it on half lockdown, you know, nearly full lockdown. Whatever it takes. And instead, it's like I say, they're just willing to accept more and more risk. Sooner or later, something happens, something breaks. That's just the nature of this job. You can get by with it for a while, but sooner or later, it's going to bite you in the ass.
Right, so this was just a quick dialogue. Obviously, Russ has got to go back to work, and I'm hiding out from the kids just to get our thoughts across. But again, we're talking about the safety and security of understaffed facilities, having those keys or access to a control point that's so easily accessible to an inmate. The policies that obviously aren't going to be touched, they're going to kind of disappear because, again, you're operating out of desperation. So you don't have the resources to implement these policies. So what do? You go ahead and, well, policies can't be found no more. Don't know where they're at. And you wind up just having a facility that's way below skeleton crew and just really a total danger, not just those that work there, but also a danger to the public. And again, we have a chance now. We had a major incident. This is a great chance for us to use that in a positive way by saying, hey, this is what's going on. These are the concerns that we have. This is what needs to be addressed. But instead, it's being minimized. So now people, even if there's a chance to try to stick up for that front line, to try to say, hey, this is what the front line needs, no one's going to listen. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't really that bad, Russ. It was just a disturbance with non-life-threatening injuries.
Yeah, that's what was said. That's what was presented. Later on, we find out it was a much different scenario that very nearly could have cost some people their lives.
You know, the funny thing is, guys, is that when we're working in corrections, especially the people that are higher level, don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about what job you're looking for in that political future of yours. Focus on the now. Because when you're so focused on tomorrow, look what you're ignoring or look what you're downplaying. Because at the end of the line, if you can't see what was said, how wrong that is, then this isn't the profession for you. If you don't see the ripple effect of that and how people are going to step up and say, yo, how could you even say that? The people that you directly hold in that level of responsibility, you know, these are the people that are answering you, but they want to look at you as a leader. And you're totally abandoning them when they're struggling on that front line and you're minimizing things by the choices of words that you utilize. So again, just a quick little dialogue, just to get the thoughts out there. Very good dialogue with those two officers that were speaking about what happened. I know they're no longer working in the system, which is great because they're able to speak up a little bit more. But again, some of the concerns we just mentioned were the keys, were the policies that are kind of disappearing. Just these guys have a chance to have a voice, and you're destroying it when you minimize the job that they do, and it destroys their chance to be effective. Hey, Russ, anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I just want to, point out something at all levels, whether it's administrative, management, supervisory, or line staff. Overconfidence is not your friend. And, these guys that are managing these prisons like that, and they're at the top and they're overconfident. They've got that tombstone confidence about them. And, maybe they really do think that it's well placed in their staff, but they're just too close to the situation and they're not measuring that amount of risk out like they should. But it's the same thing for those of us that have been on the front line all the time. Don't be overconfident. Don't get drawn into a situation that you can't handle just because you've handled it so many times before. I really think it's time for us to take a step back and look at what our policies, procedures, and staffing levels are, because this one, it was really close. They could have ended up with hostages and multi-day standoff, dead bodies, the whole 9 yards. So let's not play into the overconfidence. Let's not play into that tombstone courage. I know everyone out there is brave, but sometimes, the better part of valor is taking a step back and, reevaluating what your actual position is, because that complacency where you have that tombstone courage will get you killed.
Right. And if you guys are not in Georgia, but let's say you work at another state facility, take heed to what we're saying. Take note of what we just showed the last couple of days. This could easily happen at your facility. So we quickly took 2 direct concerns or 3 direct concerns. I'm sure there's more. But in the meantime, we wanted to take what we thought was really just 101. It's sad to say, but it really is 101. And to fail at a 101 level is, I just think, inexcusable. You just can't explain that away. This is simple 101. And if you don't understand that and you're that high up, then you need to ask yourself, why am I even in this position? Because I don't understand the job. And the best way to really understand the job is to talk to your people. They'll educate you on 101 and beyond. And obviously, if you don't understand just that part of the profession, That also means you're not talking to your people. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. And, guys, don't forget, check out Keepers of Chaos. Keepers of Chaos on Facebook, great community. A lot of information provided there. And as always, guys, please stay safe.